everybody, and welcome back to Hoffman Reproductions. Once again, good to be with everybody here today. And finally, we are back to our Scottish Dirk project. If you have been following this series of Dirk builds, you're probably wondering why this took so long. If not, you probably think nothing of it. But for those that have been following the process, the reason for the long delay, just give you a quick explanation, is I had all of the video footage for the Dirk we were working on all finished up, and took it all in and went to set up the editing, and the quality of the video was not very good. You couldn't really see what I was doing or how I was doing it. Lighting in the shop wasn't very good, so I decided to scrap that video and go ahead and set more of a staged handle carving demonstration here up for you and do a few things that enable you to see exactly what I'm doing. So, having said all that, it is time to talk about the carving on our Scottish Dirk. This is typically known as Interlace or Celtic Knotwork. Here are some examples of that. And you see this a lot in Celtic, Scottish, Irish, English architecture. A lot of things from buildings, leatherwork, and weapons will feature this artistic design. Generally, it's thought to have religious meanings. It's you know, a lot of times there's 3 knots symbolizing Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, but not always that. There's different patterns. This is just a few examples that I have of Celtic knotwork. There's a lot of different ones. The two you see the most on Scottish Dirks, and the two that we're going to be using here today, are this one here. This is a 3-lace pattern, and then up here we have a double laced pattern, 2 knots going. This aspect of building or making a Scottish Dirk is the most intimidating thing when trying to try your hand at reproducing these. It's what intimidates a lot of guys from trying it, myself included, for a long period of time, because it also involves intricate drawing mixed in with intricate carving, and those are 2 difficult disciplines to master. So I have personally streamlined the process a bit. I don't know if I invented this. I'm sure there's other people that have done it this way, but the best way to be able to do this is to learn to draw the Celtic knotwork. Now, that in and of itself takes some time, more time than I personally care to invest, but again, it is probably the best way. There's a lot of books on the subject. If you dive into the world of Celtic knotwork, a lot of information you can find, books that you can buy that will teach you to draw this stuff. But I didn't want to take the time to learn how to do that. Again, probably not the best decision, but I've come up with another process that allows you to fast forward a bit. It's not foolproof. It still takes some work to do, but it may help you if you want to give this a try. So again, you have to study the original that you're trying to replicate to see which pattern has been used. On this one, the original one carried the double and the triple pattern of knotwork, so that's what I'm going to be using here today. And the method that I use to put this on my handle, and I just have a blank here. Stuff has all been enlarged. One problem I had was the real stuff that I'm doing on the Dirk we're building. It was small enough that it made everything hard to see. So everything that I have here is larger than it actually would be, including this scrap piece of wood. But the method that I've come up with is you can find various patterns and border of interlace and Celtic knotwork online now. Of course, everything is online. The internet has made the world a much smaller place, and you can find interlace patterns and borders all over the internet now. So, doing a little investigation, I found the patterns that I'm after that are on the original Dirk. Again, this one here and this one up here. And using technology, you can find one that you're interested in, print it off, and then go to a photocopier. Most people have those in their homes now, or just a digital printer, I mean. and then you can shrink or enlarge this design to fit your Dirk, because every single Dirk, as we've said before, is going to be slightly different. So you may want to just slightly enlarge or shrink your pattern, and using a digital copier or printer you can do that. So that doesn't obviously put it on your handle, but it gives us a pattern in which to work from. So what I will do is usually take a segment of the interlace, cut it out. Again, this is blown up so you can see it good on screen. And what I'll do then is, you have to pay attention to which way the interlace is going. In other words, we have a point or an apex right here. On an original Dirk that you're trying to replicate, that will either be facing up or it will be facing the other direction this way. So you want to make sure you've got them facing the right way if you're going to copy it. But what you do is you cut out your piece. Again, this piece here is about 3 inches long. And what I do in order to make this a sort of contact paper is I will take carbon black, okay, and the noisy motorcycle going by in the background there. Hold on. I will take some of this and gently coat it on the back side of our paper to create, like I said, contact paper. Now, carbon black, in case you're wondering what it is nothing more than soot. Alright, so I heat my shop with wood, so the stove burner, if I just take the cover off, is covered with soot. That's how I get it. If you don't have that available, if you have a candle burning with a large flame and just hold like a spoon over it, or any kind of a metal plate, you can capture that stuff, let it cool off, and then just smear on it with a rag, and you'll have what you need. But it's just a simple process of getting it on the end of your rag, and then just lightly going over the back till you have a nice coating on there. And that essentially turns your pattern into contact paper. So as I said, you need to be sure that everything is facing the correct direction when you go to do this, and then set up to lay it on your wood. So I'm going to actually come back behind the camera now. Okay, so once you have your paper all set up and ready to go, you've got the right dimensions that you want to fit on your Dirk. It's not quite as simple as you think it might be. This is not a foolproof method, but it helps simplify the process. You can't just simply take a long strip of this pattern, wrap it around it, and trace it, because they won't meet upright on the other side. They're always overlapping somewhat. This is just going to get you in the neighborhood, okay? So in other words, you might have to freehand a little bit of this design, but with the bulk of it traced on there, usually that is a doable feat. So I just take a regular pencil. You want to make sure that the tip of the pencil is not to a very fine acute point, because you'll tend to want to punch through the paper. But so make sure it's slightly dull, for lack of a better word. And I will usually trace about a third of this, and then take it and flip it over to the other side. I'll do the portion of the Dirk handle that's facing up, flip it over, do the other side, and then connect each of these. Again, they may not perfectly line up. You might have to do a little bit of freehanding, but it will get you in the neighborhood. So on this particular Dirk, I believe on the original the 3 lace is up front, so I'm gonna start there. So you want to make sure it's as straight as possible. You've got everything facing the right direction. So I'll just hold on to it. This might be a little hard on camera, but I'll see what I can do. And then just go to tracing your lines very carefully, or as carefully as you can. Of course, a lot of Dirk handles are small. The real one that I'm making is much smaller than this piece of wood, and it has a slight radius on it, so it can be difficult to get this on there just right, but take your time. Alright, let's take it off and see what we got. So you can see it's not perfect. Let me get around to the camera on the other side. Alright, so you can see that. What I will typically do after I finish this, let me zoom in just a little bit here, is I will usually go back in with a small knife, and anywhere where I maybe got the line a little smushed or whatever, I'll go back over it, scrape that off, and go in and refine it with the pencil. You want to make sure you trace over this now with the pencil, because this stuff will rub off fairly easily. Alright, so go back over the pencil, make sure you're happy. You might want to scrape off a line, it's not quite flowing right, to get it back to the correct shape you want, and just continue in that fashion. But after you get the face done, flip it over, do the exact same thing on the reverse, and then lay your pattern over the sides and trace it on there. And that's where the work can come in, okay? You may have to freehand it or adjust your pattern in order to get the correct flow of the shape of the celt work, or knotwork, excuse me. So it takes some work, but it does simplify the process as opposed to just freehand drawing it on there. So hopefully it works out okay for you. So we'll go ahead and get set up now for the next step. Alright, so we've got our 3-lace design on there. Hopefully it went alright for you. And again, you just want to make sure that you have a nice flowing design. No sharp angles. If anything looks smudged or whatever, go ahead and just take a small, I don't have it with me, but a little carving knife or something, scrape off the line and trace it back in with your pencil. Ideally, to get a good carving, you have to have a good drawing. If the drawing is off or not flowing nicely or connected well, then consequently the carving is going to follow suit. So it's important to get your drawing right. Easy to adjust. You can take the whole thing off and do it over again if it doesn't come out right, but once you start cutting wood, you're committed. So make sure your drawing is laid out in a precise fashion. So we're going to go ahead now and do the single lace design shown here. Same exact thing. I'm just going to flip it over, take a little bit of that carbon black we talked about, and just coat the back side of it. Usually I'll blow it off too so the excess comes off. So we'll go ahead and just position this one right down here and set to tracing this one. Alright, so I've got our 2 designs on there for display purposes to show you all the basics of how I go about doing that. Now, if this were the actual handle, what I will do is flip it over and repeat this on the opposite side. So we've got the face on this side, flip the Dirk over, face on the other side. Now the tricky part, and which makes this method still you have to use some skill and it takes some practice, then you have to take a section of the pattern. Usually I'll cut a small section out so I can get it lined up and connect it to either side, okay, on the sides. Once you've got it about where you think it is, you hold it on there as carefully as you can and you trace that. Do that on all sides. Now typically, as I said, that will get you in the realm, okay? It's probably not going to connect perfectly. You may have to freehand some of it to get a nice flow, but again, take your time, be patient, If you need to erase the whole thing, sand it off, scrape it off, don't be afraid to do that, because it's easy to fix when it's just pencil. When you start getting out the cutting knives and chisels and going at it, you're committed then, and it's going to be whatever it'll be. So be sure you're happy with your drawing before you proceed to the carving. So that's going to pretty much wrap up this video. I just wanted to cover the design and the layout, and in the next one we'll go ahead and actually demonstrate how I go about carving, the technique and the procedures that I use. So thank you all so much again for tuning in. Please be sure to like and subscribe to this channel if you would. That really helps us out, and we'll look forward to doing our next video here real soon. Take care.